All right, welcome to the Faith and Life podcast. My name is Mike Weaver, pastor at St. Luke.
And I'm Greg Osborne.
Yeah.
You were going to introduce me and I cut you off. I'm sorry. That was rude.
Hey, that's okay. No worries. We got you're just eager to be here and
I'm ready. I'm excited. I'm like, I want to say my name.
Right.
Tell the people who I am.
Right. Yep. We're grateful that you're listening today and tuning into our podcast. So here's the question to start us off, Greg.
Okay.
I mean, the question is, if you could add one word to the dictionary, what would it be, and what does it mean? I already have a word.
All right, you're gonna need to go first because that's gonna take me some time to think. So,
and I verified. I looked it up. This word is used, but it's actually an ancient word for like numerical word in like ancient languages.
Okay.
But it's not used in American vernacular to the point where it's in the dictionary.
Okay.
Okay. And this comes from when my son Ethan was small. He drank like a Sprite. And he says, "Dad, this is ziggity." I said, "What do you mean by ziggity?" He goes, "It's fizzy, the fizziness of it." He called it ziggity.
Okay.
So I would add ziggity to the dictionary. In other words, well, to mean like fizziness, effervescence of a drink.
Okay. Okay. So I'll stick with the kid theme. It maybe is cheating a little bit, but because it's technically like a two word to make one word, but we're gonna go with it.
Okay.
But I'll ask this question though before I say this. If you're having a taco, what is the thing that is wrapped around that holds your taco in place? What do you call it?
A shell.
A shell, or a tortilla.
Tortilla, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So my kids, when they were young, they called it taco bread.
Taco what?
Taco bread.
Taco bread.
Can we have the taco bread?
Okay.
They called it a tortilla taco bread. And
I love it.
Yeah. So I think it makes sense, right? Because that bread, we have sandwich bread, we have everything else, but like it's just taco bread.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a taco bread.
It's taco bread. So now you're never going to eat a taco without thinking of taco bread now.
Right. So anybody who's listening, and if you come across as you're living your life in 2026 and you hear somebody say, we need some taco bread, or you see a brand come out, call it taco bread, you just know that
they listen to this podcast.
this is the podcast. This is the origin story of that.
Yeah.
And ziggity. If you ever have somebody say, "Boy, that Pepsi was really ziggity today,"
I'm gonna just start to say ziggity in all my time around the students and just see if I can infiltrate it into the schools in Gahanna and New Albany and just like ziggity. Like, and like everyone's like, oh, going like, where do all these kids start going 6'7"? Well, you know what? Ziggity is gonna be the new 6'7". We're gonna be like, where did everyone say? Where did this ziggity come from?
I love it, boy. Hey, I do know where the term Ohio came from.
Ohio?
It came from Granville, Ohio. There was a couple young guys from St. Luke worshiped with us for a couple summers. They're in the midst of college, and I had a conversation with them. Their buddy came up with Ohio as a term, not the state, but as a term of what is like boring or something like this. I don't know what the word means. So people go, "That's so Ohio." Well, it started in Granville, Ohio.
I don't recognize that. I don't recognize that because Ohio is not boring, okay? And I've already defended the great state of Ohio many times on this podcast.
We have talked about this. Yes,
you can go back and listen to it. But
all right, today we're going to talk about legacy and faith. I think it's a really important topic, and there's for a lot of reasons. One is, this time of year around Christmas time, it's a holiday that we pass on things, like we pass on traditions and pass on belief, and we invite people into relationship with Jesus. sort of passing on, and we're creating a legacy of things. And then as a new year rolls around, we start thinking about impact. We generally, human beings, we think about those things like, what impact am I making? What could I make in the world around me? Impact and influence is all about leaving a legacy, making a difference in somebody's lives. So I think there's a big tie-in with legacy and faith. So we can talk about that in particular, like the specifics around that. But I think more broadly, we can think about it as, what the church, what the movement of Jesus has been about since the beginning. It's about leaving a legacy. Jesus never used those words, certainly, but it's embedded in it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting. We have this talk about legacy, and you mentioned that this time of year, like that pops up. And I think back to Christmas traditions. My brother and his family are coming into town, and so we've been talking on the phone lately, like, trying to coordinate like our schedules, but also coordinate like what's the plan for Christmas. And my brother's like, well, hey, we're coming to your place, so we'll do Christmas however y'all do it. I'm like, dude, I do it like dad did it when we were kids, right? I'm like, we open stockings, then we pause for breakfast. There's one big, the kids see the one unopened present underneath the tree from Santa, and so they'll get to play with that, open their stockings. We'll have a big breakfast, and then we go and we pass around presents. We watch people open them one at a time, kind of thing, and get to enjoy the morning. And he goes, "Oh, that's exactly how we do it. So perfect." Like we've never talked, like there was never this like legacy of like, this is how you do Christmas passed on, of like my dad never sat me down, my mom and dad never like, this is how you do Christmas and this is how you should do it with your kids. It was just something that we saw. We saw the impact that it had on us, and we're like, oh, this is something we want to bring to our families. And we've never had the conversation about before, about like, oh, how do you guys do Christmas? We do it the exact same way because of what it is. And I think that's an important aspect sometimes with when we're talking legacy. You said Jesus never used the phrase legacy, but people saw what Jesus was doing, right? And the impact it had, that it trickles down into, I want to do, and I want to, emulate what Jesus set forth and laid the example for.
Yeah, I think about exactly. So Jesus, I think, lived into the legacy and the traditions of the Jewish movement that he lived in the first century. He was born into. And he certainly perpetuated those, because there in the Gospels, you see him going to the temple. He's celebrating the feast of this or the feast of that, certainly the Passover his night before he dies. And yet, so that's one level of legacy, those traditions, like you were talking about with your family, with Jesus himself, and so on. And we have our own as well that we pass down. And there's also that deeper legacy that Jesus, like you're saying, is passing on, of an emulation of a life that they want to live as well. And it's a mimicking of his life. But even deeper than that is, a different conversation, is Jesus empowers by embodying in us his life. So it's not just us trying to figure it out on our own. He gives us the power to do so. And to live out this legacy. And that does impact people's lives around us. The fruits of the Spirit that the Apostle Paul talks about in Galatians, is about leaving a legacy in people's lives, really, because it's about impact and influence.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to see, like, what legacies and things like what we leave behind without even understanding, like, we might not even know the impact that we have on somebody because of, what we've done in life, until we have those conversations and stuff. And like, even in the, our church at St. Luke, we're about to celebrate our 35th anniversary, and the legacy of St. Luke before us, and as what we've done and things, and maybe what we hope to leave is, what is our legacy moving forward too. I think it's always an interesting conversation, because we can look at what our legacy has been in the past, but then what it is moving forward too.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think some of that's out of our control.
Mhm.
So when we think about moving forward legacy, I think it's about what intentional ways of being can we have that could make a positive difference in somebody's lives, not knowing how they're going to take it, right? So out of our control is how people receive it, What's in our control is our intentional actions moving toward that legacy and wanting to be a legacy lift church and people of God. And so yeah, that's it is timely for us as a church as well. You're right, exactly right. I also recognize that in any church, there are people who have church hurt, and the legacy the church has had in their
Mm.
life has been a hurtful legacy, and that they will it's a negative thing, and they will not want to be part of a church because of the behavior of certain people in their lives that was inconsistent maybe with the message of Jesus and the life of Jesus. And that's a real reality that we have to recognize and wrestle with as a church as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think then too, it also starts with, when you look at legacy, I think it starts with um those, how do we influence those that we have influence over, right? Because at the beginning of the podcast, we were talking about, my brother and I, we do certain things because of we saw our father and mother, how they kind of did something. And so we're like, hey, we want to do this as well. And I think the church is as important as for us to start with our legacy of how do we inspire the young people in our church and in our world
Mhm.
to make that legacy, to make that impact moving forward.
Yeah. So what is it? I mean, you've done a lot of this work. Your whole career is about this, about
Yeah.
the next generation and student ministry. What have you seen has been really impactful in kids' lives?
Well, I mean, I think for me, it's one of the things that we started to look at. We did this, we did the hobby fair this year, and part of the catalyst for kind of doing the hobby fair was we want to get people in the church that have liked interests around each other. And I think part of it, but I was coming at it more even from a more, yeah, it'd be great to have like other older adults are like, oh, we'd love to do this hobby or this, and like let's get connected. But I also want it for students. There's a little bias as a student pastor here. I'm like, I want to create a little gateway in for that, of where we can find students that have like-minded activities with other believers, adults who aren't myself, who aren't the pastor, you or
Mhm.
Pastor Chris, that can that they can have these healthy relationships and be inspired to see that there are people who would love and care for them and in who they are and what they like to do. That I think sometimes we as leaders of the church can be like, well, you're paid to like, which we're not. But I think the mindset of kids sometimes is like, this is your job, you have to do this. So when they can be around people who aren't, who choose to volunteer their time or to spend time without them, and it's not their quote unquote job, I think that can make it maybe even a bigger impact and legacy on these students. So it's finding adults that have a love for Jesus, and how can they show that with then younger people, I think is something that we're trying to find that shift here at St. Luke, but how we do that as well. So
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I mean, it's so it a program, for example, of a student ministry or a children's ministry or family ministry is the structure piece of
Mhm.
it, strategy and structure. But in the end of the day, people aren't moved by strategy and structure necessarily. They're moved by people to people,
Yeah.
right? And so it's an adult coming alongside a student
Yeah.
or students to make a positive impact in their lives for the sake of the gospel. Yeah, I think it's beautiful.
Well, and we I'm doing this class with Fuller, and they talk about what are the three things right now, the Fuller Institute here, and the three things that every student's kind of looking for, and the three things they've noted is identity, belonging, and purpose. And those all come with questions of identity is who am I, belonging is where do I fit, and the purpose is what can I make a difference, how can I make a difference, right?
Mhm.
And I think those all play into legacy of students. Like we are innately desired to go, well, who am I, where do I fit in, and what difference can I make, right? That what difference can I make question is legacy. Like we're asking what can my legacy be, if we're asking what difference can I make. So if these are questions that our young people are asking, that research has shown that they're asking these things, like legacy is an important thing. And so it's important, I think, for us as a church to say, what are we doing? What difference are we making? And are we providing opportunities for them to make a difference? Or are we fitting them just into our programs, like you said earlier?
That's really interesting. And so you're saying that legacy begins young.
I think so. Because if they're asking that question, how can I make a difference? Which essentially is young people are saying, what's my contribution to the world here?
Yeah,
I that's that's a
that's good.
legacy.
That is a legacy. Yeah, because normally we think of legacy as older generations looking, but like, what's the legacy they're leaving into the younger generations' lives? And that's a fine question, and it's very relevant. I think you're right. The legacy begins way earlier than the older generation, and it begins with the question, "What difference can I make
Yeah.
in the world?" That's really good. That's good because that's when our if within our control. What can I do? I can intentionally engage this way with these type of behaviors in this particular physical thing, whatever that is. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and I think that takes the onus off of waiting around.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my legacy is, oh, worry about my legacy later in life. Well, then you miss the opportunity, to have that early initial start of what is my legacy? What's the difference that I can make in this world?
It's also recognizing that the church, the movement of the church as a people, whether it be St. Luke or any church, is it is not about people receiving all the time. It's not about am I entertained or am I inspired, whatever that is, and we come to church because of those things, just to receive, to be educated or whatever. It's about being inspired to give
Mm.
and to inspired to live a particular way that creates legacy and ripple effects all around us. So it's receiving and giving and receiving. That's the pattern of the life of a follower of Jesus within the church. It's coming to receive, but receiving for the sake of giving it away at the same time.
Mm.
Um, it's like breathing. We breathe in and we breathe out. We breathe in, we breathe out. It's the rhythm of breathe in, breathing out. And then that's the rhythm of the church as well. Breathing in the gospel, the presence of Christ, breathing out the gospel and the presence of Christ in practical ways. There is a guy, Brennan Burchard, who I follow. He's a leadership expert, and he talks about having a role model mindset. And I've heard him talk about that for many years, and I've really enjoyed, and it's important for me to think about that I am a role model to somebody, you know, maybe not necessarily just officially in my capacity as a pastor, and that might not be that at all, but just in my life, people are paying attention to my life and how I'm living it.
Yeah.
And how can I be a role model for a well-lived life in particular, just in the personal level, without being overstated or heavy-handed with it. Just like if I have that mindset, I start thinking about, okay, my decisions, my way of thinking, my behavior has positive and negative impact on people's lives around me. And so if I think about, I'm a role model, I'm not all that, I'm not perfect, but I have something to share with the world. That really is an important mindset I found to be helpful when we think about legacy as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think we're seeing that nowadays too with younger people. We hear this term a lot of your authentic self. And, you said you're not perfect. And I think that's the greatest role model that we can be for young people is to say, we're not perfect. We're gonna, you're mentioning the role model mindset. It reminds me a lot of the Timothy principle of, Paul had a Timothy. We all should have a Timothy in our life of someone that we're, a younger person than us that we're inspiring, we're pouring into, we're investing. And I mean, think about this. How crazy is, what do we worship at St. Luke on a Sunday morning, give or take?
226.
226. So take away, let's say 50 of that because it's kids and students. So, let's say 170. If we had 170, and that's just people that attend church on Sunday morning, and if that was but let's say 170 adults were like, who's your Timothy in the church? Like, if one adult was like, hey, just pick one kid, who's your Timothy? We wouldn't have enough kids and students for them, and we'd have multiple kids would have multiple Timothy, Pauls in their lives, and because and then what that impact could be like that be, I think like that would be something that would be just crazy to see of like if we look at ourselves and say, who is a young person in our life that we're impacting that's not our kid, maybe, or our grandkid or whatever. Is there someone in our life that we have that? And I think that's, we talk a lot about how legacy starts at a younger age. Well, that's another way of maybe you're later in life that you can turn and still have an impact on your legacy of what's moving forward in the future, because we all crave to make a difference in the world. And it doesn't matter whether you're young or old, we're all seeking that. And I think there's opportunities both ways that we need both in generations to make it work.
That's beautiful. I mean, that's a really powerful thought. If we all thought, who is that Timothy in my life? And if a 15-year-old kid, for example, just
Yeah.
for example, is looking for belonging, and somebody pays attention to me and makes me feel like I belong.
Mm.
Yeah, I belong to my family, my mom and dad. It sounds amazing. But in this church, I also belong here because people know me. They know my name. They
Mm.
know my interests. At least one other person besides my family does. That's a powerful, powerful statement
Yeah.
and experience as well.
Yeah.
And then to foster and then be encouraged in these ways and by an older person, not the parent or the grandparent.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. And I think sometimes when you use the word legacy, I think we can get like, we can almost just like, oh, that's daunting, right?
Right.
But I think of in our church, like, right off the top of my head, I think of Peter Chang, of my
Hmm.
kids, my kids know Peter by name now, but by golly, they know him that Peter has a bag of candy every Sunday when he's there, and my kids will look for him and want that piece of candy. And it's an adult who's investing in kids and young people, and I'm guessing it doesn't take much energy or time off of Peter's plate to just say, I'm gonna have a bag of candy that I bring to church every Sunday. And what's special is, yeah, my kids seek him out, but he in doing so, he seeks out the kids. He
Yep.
says, where like he'll say to Jordan, he's like, where's Bailey? Like he'll say to my oldest kid, where's your sister? And he seeks them out too. And like it's a both, right? Being sought after and then also seeking other. And I think that's a beautiful example of it doesn't take a lot to make an impact and a legacy in someone's life, but that is going to be a positive memory that a lot of kids at St. Luke are going to have of, you remember, yeah, you remember the candy man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so, and then that's really great. Think about like it's the candy is a tool
Yeah.
for generosity and kindness and love and belonging, right? It's just a way.
It's just a vehicle. It's just a tool.
Yeah,
And it's the candy doesn't matter, but
right.
what it matters is the results of the relationships and things that it brings and the joy and the saying, I see you, I value you. Here's
Yep.
something, right? Like, man, it's so good.
That's really, really good. So, bottom line is we can all do something. We
Yeah.
can all find that Timothy. We can all do something practical like that, or just take 30 seconds out of our morning or 1 minute on a Sunday morning and just find that young person and just ask them questions and get to know them as a
Mhm.
person. You're passing on faith and legacy. That's really beautiful. All right, so we're going to be off the next 2 weeks for the holidays. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to pick this back up in 2026 with our 95th episode in 2026.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wow. So we're not gonna have another whole episode for a whole year.
Exactly. So tune in with us when we turn the calendar and turn the new year. Thanks for listening. We appreciate that. We're grateful to be able to share this with you. All right. Take care. Thanks, Greg.
That's it.